the Backshed Bible Study. Today is Monday, April 5th, 2021. This is episode number 52 of the Backshed, and it has been a fun year being with you all here every week and getting new people that have been jumping on board. It's been a great time, and sure glad to have you all along today. I want to let you know that today's Backshed that you get to hear is and get to watch, it has been pre-recorded. A couple of weeks ago I had the opportunity to sit down over Zoom and talk with an old friend of mine. His name is Titus Dinkins. He's over in Thailand, which is why we needed to record at a different time, so he wasn't having to get up at 2 or 3 in the morning to be with me. So anyway, I just want to let you know it's going to be a fun morning. You're in for a great treat, and so enjoy this episode, number 52 of the Backshed. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a little bit of a different format for the Backshed today. I'm joined here with my friend Titus Dinkins. And Titus, you are joining us from where today?
Yeah, I'm from Thailand. I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So our greeting is put your hands together in Y and you say Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap.
Yeah, Sawadee.
And I can say Kapkun Krap.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mai Penrai.
Yeah, no problem. Dude, you still got it, Clff.
But that's all I got. And I have my favorite little Thai restaurant down the road for you all in town. That's Siam Patio and in Fair Oaks on Fair Oaks Boulevard. It's fantastic. But anyway, but I'll go in and pick it up, and April's like, "Did you try to talk Thai to them?" Like, yeah, of course I did.
That's great. Yeah.
So Titus,
they love that.
I met you. I've been thinking back to this, and I'm almost positive that I met you in the fall of 2002. If I'm going to come back correctly with this, I think you were maybe a freshman or sophomore in high school. I happened to be on a mission trip over to Thailand, and we had a whole group of us. We had 27 of us that were in our group, and we had gone there to put on camp for third culture kids, which you were one of those. Maybe you still are. I don't know. We could talk about that here for a second. But I'll never forget as we were in our tour bus, and they were taking us to these people's house that were going to host our group for dinner. And there at that, the person that was guiding the bus driver along was this young kid, very white. I thought he was very young, and here he is just speaking this perfect Thai coming out of his mouth. And we ended up having dinner in your home that night. Got to meet your parents, Larry and Paula. I believe your sister was probably still around then, and
Yep.
that was the beginning of getting to know you. Does that sound like vaguely familiar?
Yeah. No, it does. I can't say I remember it like yesterday, but I remember hanging out with it was a huge group.
We had a huge group of us, yeah.
Yeah, coming to our place. It was fun.
So you were growing up in Thailand. Why were you growing up in Thailand?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't have much to do with that. My parents, they came in 1980. My mom and dad. My dad went to Dallas Theological Seminary. My mom, they met at Oklahoma University, Boomer Sooner, and they came to Thailand after going to a prayer meeting in San Gabriel Valley to San Gabriel Community Church, which I believe is still San Gabriel Community.
Yep.
And from
I believe they're still around.
Yeah, Steve Ballantyne. And they kind of got I don't know what you call the calling, the desire, the need. They saw the need in Thailand to just spread the gospel there. And so they came over in 1980. I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. And so I was born, I'm the baby of the group. I was born in 86, to be honest. And that was on their second term, I believe. And so my dad wrote a book, Help My Halo Slipping, about their first term on the mission field. And, it was crazy. They worked with leprosy people. They did the whole shebang. They got robbed once at knife point, and once they they thought the thieves had come and actually taken my oldest brother Andy, and so it was kind of crazy. In Bangkok, when we were there, we got like this projectile shot through. I would say like a little cannonball was shot through the window at us. It was really weird. But yeah, so uh, there's been a great deal of adventure, I guess, and spiritual warfare too, in being here. But that's why they came, is to yeah, to help save this Buddhist nation, or to help be a part of um, gathering up God's people that when it received that free message of his what he did on the cross. Yeah,
Yeah, and so you were essentially raised there for the first what, 16 years of your life, something like that?
yeah, right around there.
Okay. And
We
so, oh no, go
sorry,
ahead.
we would come on and off the field. So usually do about 4 years on the field and come off a year. That's kind of changed with more like modern missions where it's
Right.
maybe 2 years and then a summer. But because it was such a big undertaking to get 6 people across the Pacific to Thailand, you would spend more time in country. And so yeah, 4 years on, 1 year off, and then it adds up. I think total, if you did the math, it's like 12, 13 years I was in country, but I left when I was like about 16.
So what was it like? Because I think you're in a good spot now where you understand American culture pretty well. But what was that like growing up in between cultures where your passport says that you're an American, you're living in a Thai culture, you're learning, I mean, you know the language, you were going to an international school. I think you were going to Chiang Mai International School, if I remember correctly, and in kind of inundated in that culture, but kind of in between cultures. Like, what was that like growing up for you?
So as like a TCK is what they call them, a third
Yeah,
world culture kid. Um, I would say I hit the jackpot, and you're like, okay, really? Uh, and in all purposes, like Chiang Mai is probably one of the best places to be raised because it still has it's all Thai, but it also has a very Western, um, yeah, progressive, I don't know, international community, expat community too. So it wasn't, when you think of missionaries, you can think of Africa, Papua New Guinea, like in the sticks. And I mean, the food here is amazing. The people here are amazing. Besides those two robbers that, yeah, uh, came in. Um,
that was Bangkok, right?
yeah, that was
Right.
actually, I think that was Central
Okay.
Thailand, and then we got that weird, that other thing down in Bangkok. But for the most part, Thailand is just a very loving,
Right.
inclusive community. People, and very different from other areas of the world where we could have gone. I mean, Chiang Mai right now is a hub, and it's kind of, when I think of Thailand, I think of like, I know might sound weird, but it has the same framework as the U.S. It's just a place that other nations kind of come for freedom. I mean, and Thailand still has its issues, and it's not progressive like the U.S. in all its freedoms. But you have Burma to the left, which is a military dictatorship. You have Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, which have all been highly influenced. I mean, the Khmer Rouge, right,
Yeah.
in Cambodia. You have the Viet Cong in Vietnam. You have the communists in Laos. Like all these areas are around Thailand, and I think one of Thailand's claim to fame is you don't it's never been colonized, and so Thailand just
Right.
has very great heritage. That to say, it was really easy for me. I felt like I mean, I could do it again and again. I wouldn't want to be raised anywhere else.
Wow. So
Yeah,
then so let's skip ahead because you and I could talk about this all day long with you because
right.
there's a lot of nostalgia.
I'm
I
sorry for being long-winded.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I love it. I've been over there twice, and I just had I think I went once in 2002, another time in 2004, and uh, oh no, it was 2003. Now it's all coming back to my brain now. But anyway, um, but everything kind of your world as we fast forward a little bit just got topsy turvy right there in the middle of high school for you, or towards the late high school years, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so I think, because I think we came back in '02 and you had guys had come fall of '01, if that's right. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
that sounds right.
And so during that fall, while Hume Lake, which was amazing, Hume Lake was exactly what Chiang Mai needed for the TCK world, is just showing this joy and fun side of the kind of, it can be mundane, monotonous, like, oh, we are here. Third world culture kids are forced into ministry. Like, that is missionary kids, right? Like,
Yeah,
we
right.
are a part of our parents' ministry. We have
Whether you
no
like it or
saying or
not.
anything about it. We're in a foreign country, foreign language, whatever. So when you see like Hume Lake come and you find these group of people that want to come and just appreciate and have fun with you for who you are, and not like just be for the ministry, but for you, it's like, it's oh man, it's just like receiving love, just straight love, like God given. And it was huge. It was huge to, and then be ministered and have, these guys that are above you that are, staying with you, these what would you call them, they're like leaders, I
Lead
guess.
counselors, yeah.
Yeah, lead counselors that are just amazing. I mean, I'm still in contact with a couple of them. um and it does me good. So when mom, during that time, mom actually had some really bad back problems, and we thought it was nothing. The doctor said, oh, it's just, like a sore back or whatever. It ended up being a tumor. They ended up finding a tumor in her back like 6 months after, or actually more like a year after she started developing these issues. And we found out that it was malignant. And so our life changed. In 2 weeks span, we picked up our house in Thailand, everything anew, and we went back to the States. And I was optimistic. I was thinking, okay, we'll just get into remission, everything will be fine, or not even remission. It was like, oh, it's just a bad test, and we'll be back. We'll go to the summer to the States. It'll be awesome, and then we'll come back for the fall. And it didn't turn out that way. Yeah, we ended up staying in the States, in LA, Pasadena area. My mom got chemo, radiation, 2 bone marrow transplants. Yeah, and over the next 9 years,
Wow.
11 years, 11 years. Yeah,
Wow,
until she passed.
it dragged out that long. I had forgotten that it really had dragged out that long. Um,
Yeah, because multiple myeloma is incurable but highly treatable,
yeah.
and so it was one of these things that would stay with her. And so I thought mom would pass from old age eventually, and then in 2011, uh, everybody thought she had like food poisoning, but it ended up being bacterial meningitis. And
Oh,
by the time you're supposed to give the medication for that, the how the doc said it was, the horse was already, out of the barn, the
yeah.
whatever that.
Horses left the
So
barn. Yep.
yeah, no coming back.
Oh,
And I got to say goodbye, but she was uncognizant when it happened, and that was really tough, for me, just because I had a lot of guilt from, not being the best son that I could be. But I think so. A lot of people had to speak truth into my life, saying, "No, Mom, Paula loved you, Titus, and you
oh
were
yeah.
you were a lot of joy."
What was the
That's
verse your mom always gave you that talked about the joy of Titus being in the
Yeah,
coming into the world to
right. I think so.
God sent
Paul,
Titus to us. Paul said something about
right.
this.
Paul comforted us with the coming of Titus.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's in Timothy. Yeah.
Well, and for my friends out there that are paying attention, you all know we have a Titus. He's a strong-willed little guy, 9-year old that is makes sure that I know that he's in charge most of the time. Uh, but I'm not going to say that we named him after you, Titus. But I would say that you inspired uh, our naming of him, and were a big inspiration of that. And it always stood out to me. I mean, you obviously you came and lived with me for a while during that season when
Yeah.
you all had first come back to the States, and I remember your dad called me and said I need Titus to get away and be somewhere where he can be around some people his own age. And Hume Lake ended up kind of
Yeah,
becoming a refuge and a place of,
yeah,
God doing some
that
work.
was pivotal.
Yeah. And you
Yeah,
eventually went through the Joshua Wilderness Institute,
I
and
did.
that
Yeah, that
was,
was. I look back at that as being just so instrumental by God to allow that to happen, because yeah, when TCKs come off the field and stuff, we can have a hard time um, getting back into the swing of things, because we're just a third world culture kid. We're not at home in the place we were born or we live or growing up overseas, because they see us as different, and then we go back and we don't feel like at home either in the States, because we grew up overseas. And man, Hume was just allowed me to make that transition really smooth. And Cliff, you had a huge part in that, and I thank you for allowing me to come on, staff for that month, even though I probably shouldn't have. I feel like I was probably too young,
you
but
were a
man,
little young. That is true. But that's, there are these times you save those, you you save those coins to spend at the correct time with your bosses. And there's a time
mm,
when you walk in the door to the boss and say, we need to pull some strings to make some policies not so much policies anymore. And
yeah, you
you
catch that in well.
Yeah, it was. I think that was a worthwhile endeavor having you come and be a part of things
Yeah,
up there for that month, for sure.
yeah, and Joshua was a huge part in just allowing me to understand who really I was. So, oh man, great
Oh,
times.
never mind me here. I'm pulling off some. I'm actually doing some searches for some things online, but we'll bring those involved in this in a few minutes. So
Yeah,
don't worry about what I'm doing over here while you're on the screen.
no, no,
Um,
yeah, I was thinking of just Pete and Bree Ammerman. They're
mhm.
actually kind of continuing on this TCK, um, what would you call it, transition by
And I
really.
actually had them on the back shed here several months ago. And
Oh, cool.
that was a lot of fun because we had talked about that exact thing, especially with Bree growing up in Papua New Guinea.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and they were in my class, so it was fun to be able to hang out, yeah, with Bree and yeah, Daniel, Van, can't remember Van, Dan, no
Dan.
Kaika boy. Yeah, that was a good time. It's fun.
um, okay, so so you end up back in the U.S. You go through Joshua Wilderness Institute. You decide to go do some college, right? San Diego Christian College, if I remember correctly. What did you study when you got down there?
So at Joshua, we went down to Rancho Sordomundo to the deaf camp, and on
That's
our way
right,
down there,
Luke Everett.
uh, we stopped. Yep, we stopped off at San Diego. At that time was Christian Heritage College, and um, just Darren happened to be speaking, and there was a guy there, and I think I had talked about wanting to do aviation. They're like, "Oh, this place has aviation," and so randomly I chatted with a guy there while we just passing through. I think we slept in room 1314, which is now gone, but anyways, yeah, I talked to a guy, and after Joshua, I went back to that college because I got scholarship for going to Hume Lake, for doing Joshua Wilderness. It's crazy how you see the Lord, kind of just fit things together. I actually thought I was going to do the Air Force Academy. I had my mind, all figured out to do Air Force Academy, get in, and become a military pilot, a fighter jet pilot, and and it
That's what
never.
I was gonna do coming out of high school,
Everybody.
right?
Yeah, yeah. How did that happen? How did that end up not?
Well, the problem was I saw Top Gun as well as
Hmm.
everybody else that was my age at the time, and we all tried to get into the Navy to become aviators, and that was almost impossible at the time. So, you know, I fell back on. I can't remember what I fell back on, but I'm glad I didn't. Very glad I didn't.
My ACT scores, I think, weren't high enough for what the Air Force Academy wanted. And so I was like, oh God, all right, I'll go to SDCC. And I got all my ratings through there. And then I'm guessing, yeah, just to kind of go on with that, I was ready to go to the mission field to do missions aviation. And I talked to a New Tribes pilot who was there on home assignment. And he said, if you really wanted to be useful, go get your mechanic license
That's right.
overseas. And we're like, okay, wow, all
Yep.
right, well, I'll look into that. And, my adventurous spirit, I looked kind of everywhere. There was a place in San Diego at Miramar where I could do a 2.5-year course. And I was like, man, I don't want to stay. I want to kind of like, this is my time to venture out. So I looked around Portland Community College, School of Mission Aviation Technology, Michigan. There's a place in like Calgary, Canada, Liberty. And I was looking for places that had 1 year mechanic courses. And the place that had that 1 year that God led me was Fairbanks, Alaska. Who would have known?
Wow.
Yep. And so I was like, God, if you want me to go there, open the doors. I need a job. I need a place to stay. And he provided both of those. And so when was that? 2012, I went up to Alaska.
And what kind of things did you do in Alaska, Titus?
Yeah. So I took a year.
Actually, you know
To
what?
get,
I'm just going to do a little screen share here, and you can tell us what we're seeing here for a second.
yeah, I had a pretty good time. Yeah. So that's me playing my bagpipes out in front of the plane that I flew. It's a beaver on floats. I think
Yeah,
that
it
one was
is.
a 56. My boss was like, he was born in 56. He's like, I love this plane because it was built in 56. Yeah, a de Havilland Beaver. And those are the workhorses of Alaska just
Right.
because they are still used. They carry a good amount of load on them of passengers, cargo, and then they can get off the water quickly. And they're
That's
still making parts for them.
that's amazing. Now sorry, I'm just having fun. I got on your Instagram and it's like that's what I was doing over on the side there while you were talking.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it sometimes freaks me out how many things you and I have in common because I learned how to play the bagpipes in high school, and and
I did not know that.
I was pipe major of our high school bagpipe band. I might have
Where
to
was that?
in Bakersfield, at Highland High School. We were the Scotsmen.
There's a Highlanders in San Diego that has a pipe
Yep.
band too.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
No
Absolutely.
way.
So
Cliff, I did not know. My bagpipes are in the other room. And
my
Michelle,
bagpipes are under our bed at home, and they get brought out about once a year, and
yeah,
they
yeah,
sound pretty
felt the same.
bad.
That's fun.
But so
Bagpipes
you
are
you spent this time, and so you effectively became a bush pilot in Alaska.
Yep.
You've got your A&P, uh, airframe and power plant, which means you can fix an airplane that breaks down and or just needs regular maintenance, and so you're just looking forward, going now but you're not in missionary aviation.
No, yeah. I worked 8 years on the island of Kodiak.
Yes,
Um,
you did.
yeah, I should say I was in Alaska for 8 years. I was in Kodiak for five of that. And yeah, I went through my paces, started out as nothing and then worked up into flying that beaver on floats. And so the last 2 years, I think so I left Alaska in the end of 18. Um, and that's an interesting story real quick. I got to go on a missions trip to Russia out of the blue through my church in Kodiak, through their Slavic Gospel Association, the SGA, and
Yeah,
we
I
went on
remember
a
them.
yeah, and we went to Khabarovsk and Vladivostok and stuff. And while I was there, we were talking to missionary pilots. Uh, and this one guy's like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you. You just need to talk to our kind of like our benefactor, who lives in Alaska." I was like, "Well, that's crazy. I live in Alaska." So I went over to this benefactor, and who's a great guy, Kingdom Air Corps, um, out east of Palmer in Alaska. They specialize. Their goal is to train and equip future missionary pilots, and And I went and talked to them, and long story short, he said, I can't use you. You really need to be Russian. And I was like, God, you got me to Russia, and then now you're saying you can't use me there? Like, what the heck? During that meeting, no joke, 5 minutes after that meeting ended, there's a guy sitting right next to me. His name's Zach Loving. And I asked him, so, like, what do you do here? Thinking, oh, I'm gonna be on Kodiak for a little bit more, or I'm gonna be looking at MAF. And he's like, oh, I'm with the Free Burma Rangers in Thailand. I'm like, what? Oh, I grew up in Thailand. I know FBR. I
Well,
played
and
basketball with Dave.
well, and that's
Going on.
interesting because I remember the first time that I came to Thailand, and we were doing our first camp there in Chiang Mai out at the Wang Ton. I don't even know how to say that place.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Um, there was a student, a camper that was there that was dressed up in his Free Burma Rangers gear, for lack of a better word. And I remember at the time
Yeah.
going, "What on earth is Free Burma Rangers?" Right?
Yeah.
And yet
Yeah,
you've
that's
been,
crazy in '02.
yeah.
Man. So if FBR started in right around 97, I believe. It started in 97. Dave had gone in earlier than that. But it's just crazy how it all kind of wrapped around, and they had just started. So Zach Loving was just helping to start an aviation program when I met him in what did that been, 17, 18, somewhere around there. And I was like, man, I'm quitting my job in Kodiak to get into missions aviation. And lo and behold, he's like, yeah, man, you should come and check us out when you're back in town. So when I went back, because my dad, after mom passed in 2011, he came back in 13 because mom always said there's not going to be enough uh, Thai people in heaven. And uh, that was just one of those things that I think
Wow.
dad's like, he also got his second wind with this oration of the Bible, simply the story. It's
Uh-huh.
interesting. Western mindset is like bringing we're very academic,
Right.
and theory and stuff. And we bring that into a lot of cultures. And we've done that a lot in Southeast Asia, but a lot of these places, they're not the most literate. Um,
Right.
Thai, I'm actually learning Thai again, right? Reading and writing. And it is not an easy language. 44 consonants, 23 vowels or something. The vowel can come above, below, in front, behind the consonants. There's 5 tones,
Five
so
tones.
you can say one thing, you say it right. My. It means like, does your silk burn? Does it? Like that phrase. So you can just think, yeah. It's tough, and when we're writing it out and stuff, and thank goodness for Google Translate, where you can
Right.
talk it.
Well, yeah, there's some
The
sentence
horrible
out
speed.
there with chicken that's like a ka 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 ka.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, we were having dinner last night with some Thai friends, and I asked my fiance, Michelle. She's been here 5 years. She works with Thais day in, day out. And we were reading a story, and it was like ko. And I was asking her, like, do you know what ko is? And she's like, no. I'm like, but you know what cow is? And it's wua. Well, everybody always uses wua. Like that's the word. But this ko, it's like a royal form or a higher form of, there's like high class Thai, because you have royalty, you have kings,
right. Right.
in Thai, you have a king in Thailand. And so anyways, that to say that there's different ways of saying stuff. And so in my Thai class now, I'm only in 6, but they're adding like this high level of Thai to it, which cracks me up. It's like, man, I need to know. Let's keep the basics going.
Oh my
But
goodness.
anyways, Thai's a crazy language, and dad really got into storying, all that to come around. Dad got really into storying, and he came back in 2012, 13, and really has gone on to this storying in South, trying to really bring that out in all different lives. So he knows like 100 stories off the top of his head, biblical stories that you could ask him, and he pretty much knows them verbatim in English and Thai. And
Wow.
it's really impressive. Yeah.
That's
And so that's how,
Go Larry. Golly. All right. Please say hello to your dad for me. It's been
yeah,
an easy 20 plus years since I've seen him, but Um, I think maybe the last time I saw him was when we were trading you off in a parking lot in Visalia um, to go to Hume Lake.
Right.
But
Yeah.
um,
That
so
might be.
okay, let's go back to Free Burma Rangers. So uh,
Yeah.
in my own world, Free Burma Rangers was this thing I got to expose to, 20 plus years, 20ish years ago, when I saw a young man in the uniform and never really knew what it was. And then here last year, I started to see a lot of buzz coming on the internet about a movie or a film that was being made about Free Burma Rangers. And it all kind of started to come together. And I knew that you had moved back to Thailand to be a part of Free Burma Rangers. So this is here you go. This is the chance. Tell us and our wee little audience here. There's a good chance
What?
as we are playing this on. I think we're going to broadcast this on April 5th. That we'll probably have about 15 or so people watching live, and then another few hundred watching a little bit later. But tell us about Free Burma Rangers. What is it? What do you guys do? And
Yeah.
yeah,
So we bring help, hope, and love. Like that is our mission. Help, hope, um, and love to people that are being oppressed, and that can be anywhere. And um, tell you the truth, we are all oppressed in ways because of sin. And so FBR, even though we would not just come out and say we're a Christian organization, 90% of our staff are, but we also have Buddhist and Muslim and uh, agnostic, kind of like the whole spectrum. Well, maybe not the whole spectrum, but a good part of it that work with FBR that are staff. And because we work in areas, conflict areas, so our issue. I mean, we have to work with a bunch of different people in those places and stuff. We mainly work in Burma because Burma is next door to Thailand, and Burma has had it's the longest ongoing civil war, and I think it just went over 70 years. So just to give
wow,
just a little bit of
yeah,
history really quick, the British colonized Burma, right? The Japanese came through and pushed out the British. The British went back into India to the west. Once World War II was over and the Japanese retreated out, the British came in and they set up they gave it back to the people. They said, we're not going to be colonizers anymore. We're giving it to you guys. And they had great intentions, I think, in doing that. The thing is, the way that it happened, it kind of collapsed. And you have like seven kind of like autonomous states. I think the UN would actually be able to group these people as their own, uh, like they could be their own autonomous country if they wanted to, because they have their own language, they have their own society, they have their own governing. It's like everything that would make up a society and a place that we would label as like a country, as a state. There's like seven of them that they could do. You have the Karen, the Karenni, the Kachin, the Shan, the Wa, the Arakan, and these are all like kind of states bordering on the outside of Burma. And in the inside, in the middle, we call it the plains, because along the outside, you have the Himalayas that kind of reach and come down around it. And then, in the middle of the plains, the whatever, um, we would call those the Burma people. So in which they call Myanmar, right?
right.
And I think that's just a way to kind of forget about Burma, because Burma
Mm.
has been heard of, but the military in 98, I forget the year. No, maybe it was later. Maybe it was in 2000s. They changed it from Burma to Myanmar. And so that is the technical name of the place. But we always call it Burma because all the ethnics know it as Burma.
Right.
People in Thailand call people Pama. Like that's the place. Anyways, And so the longest ongoing civil war has been going on, and FBR's mission is just to be there, um, giving help, hope, and love. And so we're helping them through medicine. We're helping them through supplying them. Right now, there's 8,000 IDPs. An IDP is an internally displaced person.
Hmm.
So you live in that area, you are just displaced from your home. So yeah, and Fair Oaks or something, it would be like living in LA County. Wait, Fair Oaks, LA County, right? No,
We're
I'm doing
actually
that.
in Sacramento.
Oh, but
Yeah,
is there a Fair Oaks down in,
probably.
man, maybe I'm
There
totally
might as
off.
well be. There's a Thousand Oaks.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking, Thousand Oaks. Okay, okay.
It's all good.
So Sacramento, the US government comes in and pretty much just burns down your house, burns down your work, and says, hey, you got to flee to the Sierra Nevadas. You got to go up. And
Right.
that's where they live. And um, that's been going on for 70 years. The Burmese military goes around and oppresses people by trying to seize control of their land, which, I mean, this is their land that they've been living in for thousands of years. And the Burmese military, and let's go back a little bit. These people, these different groups and stuff, right when the British moved out, um, they were given like sovereignty to govern over their areas. It would be like the states. It'd be like you are given California, you are able to govern and stuff, and then be the federal government coming in and causing disruption because we want to have control of it. It's like, wait a second, we're under the feds, but and they're doing it through killing, through rape, torture, indentured
Wow.
servitude, right? All that, and that's been going on forever. And
For years.
there's certain
Wow.
uprisings going on, and but yeah, it's a continuous conflict area. And so you have these different states in Burma that are continuing to war. Now, FBR, we deal with the people that are being oppressed more than the oppressors, right? But we look at the Burmese military and we want to love them just the same because God loves them just as much as he loves the Quran, right? And we have that same feeling for the oppressors because
Hmm.
God doesn't, sin is sin for everyone,
Right.
right? Um, but the thing is, we deal more with the people that are being oppressed because Burma is like one of those areas that it kind of gets overlooked because they don't have any major influence in the world, in the world's eyes until the Rohingya and a million people get genocide, or not a million. Is it a million? I think it is. I think it's close to that, like a million, or I should say, maybe I shouldn't say we're genocide, but where they were displaced. A million people were displaced out. I think 100,000 over died. But yeah, I
Wow.
mean,
It's just,
those once something crazy happens,
yeah,
right, then the eyes of the world turn their attention.
right.
Now that there's protests in Yangon and 200 are dead, the eyes of the world turn their attention to it.
Right.
Um, and Dave's story, if you want to know more, is that movie does a great job of kind of yeah, Free Burma Rangers, the movie, which I think you can get on Amazon. So it's kind of like documentary
And in
style that.
a little kind of piece of history, or not history, a little trivia here is the guy that did the documentary. Um, I met him, golly,
Didocs, yeah.
what's that?
Didocs Films.
Yeah, it was. I'm
I'm horrible
forgetting
with
his name,
names.
but I met him back when he was in his young 20s and just starting to do films. I mean, and this was a good 20 something years ago, and we had him come up and do a whole series of uh, uh, things up at Hume Lake over I think it was a winter, and pretty powerful stuff. So it was neat to see him continuing to use his gifting in filmmaking to really expose things that are going on around the world and expose, us over here in the West to things that we just don't pay attention to, right?
Right. And I think that's his ministry that he sees. And he did a great job with that. with that movie. I think FBR was excited to see that release and stuff, and we're trying to get it translated into different languages and stuff. Yeah, I think FBRs is kind of like our base is we know that you're suffering and we want to be there with you during your suffer. And we bring a very specific, we're a unique niche in that. So our major thing is to help provide them with means of just like basic needs, but our underlying push, that driving force, is the gospel. It's the reason why we do what we do every day, is because we want them to understand that there's a loving God out there that yearns for them, that is with them in their misery that they're going through. And even right now, there's 8,000 IDPs in Karen State. That's in the last, I think it's been about 5 months, 6 months. So 8,000 people. I mean, and they've been going on for 70 years. That civil war in Burma has been going on for 70 years. And there's 8,000 Karen. And so FBR is going in there providing food, because so what happens like on a day in Burma with this situation in the, I'm not talking about protests in Yangon, but up in the mountains and like in the Karen Kachin, is the Burmese army is like building roads into these kind of like established Karen areas. And they do that by, they build a road and then they set up a camp. And then those camps kind of go off and then they cause havoc in that area. And they do that by starting to mortar into villages, right? Or maybe it's first off mortaring into rice fields while you're growing crops. And rice is kind of like your basic, that's all. If you don't have rice, you die.
Right.
Like, so that's their cash crop, their eating crop, everything. And so they mortar into that area, and now you can't, now you're not working the land. And then they start mortaring the village. So now you have to flee the village. Then they go and burn down your village while you're out. So now you're living in the jungle somewhere around. And so there's 8,000 IDPs living in the jungle right now in makeshift camps. So, we give them tarps, we give them medical supplies, we give them food. And then I think the biggest one, we try to do what we call these GLCs, Good Life Clubs, which is pretty much the presentation of the gospel and mainly directed towards kids.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that, like adults, they can kind of get the grasp of the things going on, but kids just have no idea.
Right.
And so we try to bring some kind of fun, something out of that day of just misery and light, and tell them that there's something more to this world. And it's very unique kind of niche. You don't really hear about. I mean, there's different organizations that do relief, but FBR kind of goes across the borders where those relief kind of sometimes end because of fighting, and FBR kind of goes past that and is okay living in that area.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm not very good with words.
It makes great sense, and I think there's so much more to it, that we could really talk for hours about it. I want to I'll do one more screen share here for people to see here, but this is the website for freeburmarangers.org, and it's worth checking out. I mean, I love it as they, each of these things is they're looking to provide hope to the oppressed, and there you go, spiritual training and so on. And it stands out to me how it's just easy to look at this and go, this is on the other side of the world, it doesn't affect me, and what can I do, right? What can I, as a suburban American in 2021 that's just trying to survive COVID-19 and all that, how can I help? How can I be a part? How can I support? And I think one of the things
Pray.
I wanted people to do is to meet you and to see someone whose feet are on the ground that's actively working here and go, what can we do to pray for you, to encourage you, support FBR and what they're doing.
Thank you. That's a great, great application for this time. I think the biggest one, is pray. Uh, Pray for unity between. I mean, really, what I'm praying for right now is that the military dissolves.
Mm,
That the Western countries come and they put such pressure on this illegal junta, which is the military overtake of the quasi democracy that was going on there. They would call it democracy. It wasn't. It was just a puppet democracy
right.
over the military that has continued control. That they have so much pressure that they, that the army just splinters, and that they fraction off, and they don't go and they don't work for these military generals that are really, the puppeteers of this whole charade of a government. And so that's really what I'm praying, and that the protesters, they feel that, well, they're led by what they feel that they need to do. Civil obedience. I think the Bible's about us, like honoring the authority that's over us. And so it's interesting. I think that's a bigger discussion to have in this case, what civil disobedience. But I guess it's to pray that they do what they feel is right and being led by God to do. And so I think that's the overall kind of what's going on in the coup and stuff right now. Is we're praying that, the military will fall, democracy will kind of reign, so that the gospel can infiltrate into Myanmar and Burma. The other thing is, like, for these IDPs, that they would just pray for love for them, that they would continue to have just not hate for their captors, but that they would just continue to be provided with supplies that they need, because God, you can physically, and we need to physically be there for them, but really the heart is the thing that needs to change the most.
Right.
And so we're praying for the hearts of these IDPs, that they find that, Jesus is there for them and he loves them. For FBR, I think is just that wisdom on how we have, FBR has a training camp in Burma where we train up teams. I mean, and really, so I say help, hope, and love. How do you bring help, hope, and love? You bring that by reporting on the atrocities, so that they're not just overlooked.
Right.
So we have a medical, we have JSMK, Jungle School of Mission of Medical, in Burma, as well as Dawa Camp, which is a training center in Burma to train up teams so that they can go out and report on what is going on. And so, for wisdom on how, because there are people in Burma, in the protesters, that want to get training. And the training that we give is not really like civil disobedience. Our training is more like reporting, videography, medical, gospel, the Good Life Club. Like, that is our goal. So wisdom in our leadership, and unity in, FBR, when you have all these different people from different cultures, religion.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy. I mean, FBR is just God has kept FBR together, because man, I have no idea how man would be able to juggle all these different entities working, and then especially in a conflict area with so much stress. But God has given Dave a very unique mission and skill set, and he does it pretty dang well. So prayer for Burma and the protesters, prayer for the IDPs that are continuing to have to deal with the military and all the atrocities that they commit against them. And then, leadership with FBR, and direction in the future on kind of how we should deal with the situation and with the protests and stuff.
Wow. Whew. I don't think we have a clue how easy we have it in some ways. And Titus, you have exposed us and our audience to something I think for most of us just completely outside of our worldview. And I really appreciate it. Uh, it's the thing I can tell you about this church, Sunrise Community Church. It is a church that cares for the lost. It is a church that cares about those who have lost hope as well. And I think you've given us a great view into a window of something we just haven't seen before. So super grateful. I would yeah, one more screen share for all of us today. This is the Free Burma Rangers movie website, fbrmovie.com, and you can get access to that. You can see you can get it digitally. You can get it on DVD through Lifeway and Amazon and so on. But an excellent film came out several months ago. It was this year, or in the last year, if I remember correctly. But Titus, as we close up here, I gotta wrap things up here. It's almost 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night, and my kids are over in kids clubs, and I gotta pick them up, or people start questioning why the pastor's leaving his kids too late. Um, you're getting married.
I am.
You
Yeah, praise God, right?
I wondered for years, is Titus the bush pilot? I started wondering, like, is he gonna get stuck in Alaska and not find a woman? What happened? How did God give her to you? Just give us a little brief story about that.
Yeah, Michelle is amazing. Yeah, she, we're two peas in a pot. Um, and we met at Thai church here in Chiang Mai about a year and a half ago, about there. And she was on the other side of the eye, like we have a couple farang in our Thai church and stuff, and she was over with the Thais. And I was thinking, man, that's just crazy. Like, what's her deal? Was she come? A lot of people just go to the English churches here,
Sure.
but she comes to this Thai church and she doesn't sit with the farang and kind of, equate herself with them. She sits with the Thais. And so it really kind of just got my mind going. And then I found out she just loves God. She loves adventure. And her motto is, wherever, whenever, whatever, wherever, whenever, whatever. And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
like
that's
God,
totally you.
all right. Yeah. And so besides being beautiful, I just love being around her. And yeah, I'm just so thankful for God for providing her, bringing her into my life. So we're excited. Yeah, in August, we're gonna, Lord willing, that's a prayer request for us, is with COVID and everything,
Yeah.
is we want to have a wedding here in Chiang Mai. Her thing, is like, I just want people to be all her. She works missions through business here, and so she started a organization called Bliss. Helped start an organization called Bliss um, that helps give women, impoverished women, well, not just impoverished, but any women, a good paying job, that and hear the gospel, and to just kind of minister, through business. And so she's been doing that for 5 years. So she wants at the wedding, all her Mabon is a housework. And so I don't know if I said that. So she helps the business strategy of Bliss, or what they do is they are the middleman between Thai workers, women, and expat community that want
Right.
house help.
Yeah.
And so they found like a little niche there. And so she wants all those housekeepers, Mabons, to come to our wedding to hear the gospel again, just to kind of like get it up. So we want to do it here, but we also want family from the States to come.
Right.
So we don't want them to quarantine. Right now, you got to quarantine for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
We're praying that the quarantine passport goes through, so that they can just get the shots and then be able to come here without quarantine. So that's a prayer request for Michelle and I.
Oh man, I am thrilled for you. Absolutely thrilled. You've grown up, man. You've grown up. I'll tell
Yeah.
you all. This young man, is on my screen. Gosh, I don't even know if you have a clue about it, but yeah, it was uh, summer of 2010, and you were down there in the SDCC aviation program, and I was down spending a summer in San Diego working with Hume, and you helped me get recurrent in my piloting.
You were my first student.
I was your
Once I got
first.
my flight instructor, yeah, you were my first student, Cliff. And I need to say thank you. Thank you for being my guinea pig. Oh my goodness, Cliff. I didn't know anything when
You are you
what
kidding?
I
You were
taught.
fantastic.
Oh my goodness. Ay, ay, ay. That's so funny. That's so funny because I remember it's like, Taj, you got to get your feet wet, but I didn't want to go straight in students. It's like the perfect segue of having somebody that would just be gentle and easy. Because yeah, instructing. Wow.
Yeah, you were
Ooh,
good to
oh,
me.
that's it. I'm sorry. That's another huge prayer request too. Like, okay, I'm a pilot. This is probably the unspoken thing. Like, oh wait, you're a pilot. What are you doing with FBR? Like, how? Well, FBR. We have a plane in Chiang Mai, a
Okay.
Cessna 172, a little four-seater,
Yep.
bug smasher, and we're hoping, and you guys can be praying
Mm,
for us. That we're hoping to get a helicopter to put into Burma,
okay.
um, to be able to fly around, and to help through aviation in Burma to help the ranger. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
our aviation department with FBR is to help the ranger with aviation, and we also want to fly in Thailand, but we see a need because it's just very mountainous there. I mean, a ten
Yeah.
hour drive can be completed, or a 10-hour walk can be completed in a 30-minute flight, or a
Yeah.
4-hour drive. And so we see aviation being needed, but that's a whole different discussion
All
too.
right.
But yeah, that's crazy. My first student,
That's
and
fun.
are you? When's the last time you flew?
Oh, it's been years. It has been years,
Oh,
but I have a buddy up here that takes me up every once in a while, but I have not gone alone since I think 2010, 2011, something like that. So, and nor would I want to at this point. Hey,
oh man,
let me wrap this up. I'm going to pray, and unfortunately, I got to get moving. But
for sure.
what a joy this has been, Titus. And it's just a privilege to be able to expose our church and friends online here to you. I have the utmost respect for you, and it's there. They talk a lot about today about how young people end up walking away from the Lord and walking away from the church as they grow up. And you're a great example of someone who's stuck through it. And I really see God using the hard times in your life to solidify your faith in a powerful way. And I'm grateful to see you serving Him with your entire life. So let me pray for you here really quick as we close here. Father, I'm so grateful for my friend Titus and just over so many years that I've gotten to watch this young man grow up and uh, and I thank you for his commitment to you, his service to you. I thank you for Free Burma Rangers, and I pray, Lord, that as an organization that they would be spirit led, that you would give their leadership wisdom um, as to the right strategies, the right places to go, the right things to do when they go those places. And we would pray even just specifically for that opportunity to have a helicopter in Burma and to be able to get
Mm,
in and out of mountainous terrain much more easily. And so we pray for that. I pray for the IDPs, and I think that was intentionally displaced persons that
mm,
uh, that are, in essence, just living under oppression and barely surviving. And Father, I just pray that you would give them hope, the ability to see past what is happening right in front of them, and to see a hope for what you would have for them, and that you would provide for them, that they would see you providing every day in the same way that you provided for your people, for the Israelites as they wandered in the desert for 40 years. We pray for that, and I pray that these military dictatorships, military governments that are being oppressive over their people, Father, that those things would fall and be replaced by freedom and the ability for people to be represented well by their government and not oppressed by their government. And so we would
Hmm.
pray to that end. And I pray for Titus and his marriage coming up to Michelle, and Lord, would you just do a powerful work in them and use them? I thank you for her. Thank you for Titus. And God, thank you so much. In the name of Jesus, I thank you and praise you for the great work that you're doing. And I thank you for this time today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks,
Titus,
Cliff.
thank you for joining us today. It has been a privilege to have you on board here on the Backshed Bible Study. We didn't get into the Bible today, but yeah, we'll still call it that. So God bless you all. Look forward to seeing you next week, where we will have another fantastic guest. I have no clue who that is because I'm recording this 3 weeks ahead of time. But we'll see. Hope to see you back here. God bless you, everybody. Goodbye.